In this demonstration, we are going to look at creating a Bring Your Own Device BYOD guest wireless network for employees. This can be very useful if you are an enterprise wireless network administrator. When employees work for an organization, they expect to be able to have internet access for their personal wireless devices so they can check social media, email, and so on. We don't want them to use our standard wireless network because that would be insecure. Instead, we can create an isolated wireless network that only has access to the internet, not our internal network. We are going to use this particular vendor's wireless networking equipment. The way you may do it with another vendor's wireless equipment will be different, but the same general principles will apply. Also keep in mind that your organization should have a policy in place on how they want to create their wireless networks. For this vendor's equipment, the first thing we need to do is define a guest access service for our BYOD. Then we need to create a guest wireless LAN and associate our guest access service with that guest wireless LAN. The first thing we need to do is click the Configure tab. Go to Guest Access and click Create New. First, we need to give it a name. Let's just call it CorpNet BYOD. Next, we need to specify how we are going to authenticate users to that guest network. One option is to pass authentication. The other option is to use no authentication. We're going to select Use the Guest Pass authentication. We also want to select Show Terms of Use. Now, when someone tries to use our guest wireless network, users must agree to the default terms of use. You probably want to consult with your organization's legal department and come up with appropriate terms of use for your wireless network. We can also specify where the user is directed after accepting the terms of use. We can send them to the URL they originally intended to go to, or we can redirect them to a specific URL. We're going to select redirect to the following URL. Type http://corp-byod.corpnet.com. If we wanted to, we could have our company's logo uploaded to our web portal pages, but we won't worry about that today. We can, however, customize the way our guest user login page looks. Let's go ahead and just make a simple change to the title. We want it to read, Welcome to the CorpNet BYOD Access Login page. The next thing we want to do is look at restricted subnet access, so I am going to expand that. Notice this says right here that anyone who is connected to a guest wireless network will be automatically blocked from any subnet to which the wireless controller itself, or one of its access points, are connected. We'll leave that as is. If there are additional subnets that we don't want them to have access to, we can add them over here in this list. We are not going to do that today because there aren't any, but you could add some if necessary. Let's go ahead and click OK. If we scroll up, we now have our guest access service defined. Now we need to define a guest wireless LAN. We already have a wireless LAN defined for our internal users, but we need to create a new one for our BYOD users. Let's call it BYOD-guest, and this is the CorpNet Guest Wireless Network. Now, because this is a guest network, we're going to mark the guest access option under Type. Notice that when we do, it says the guest access point policies and access control will be applied. That's exactly what we want, because we want to lock down the users who will be using this network. We only want them to be able to do the bare minimum. For our authentication options, we'll choose Open. For encryption options, we are going to select None. Next, we must specify which guest access service we want to associate this guest wireless network with. There's only one guest network defined so far, CorpNet-BYOD, so we'll click that. Down here, we have an option for wireless client isolation. If we leave this option checked, we will isolate wireless client traffic on this network from any other client who might be connected to the same access point. We don't want these devices to see others on our guest network, so we are going to leave that option marked. Click OK. The next thing we want to do is create a limited admin user that can generate our guest passes for the BYOD devices. To do that, let's go to the Users tab on the left hand of the page. There's already one account here that can create guest passes, but we're going to create another one for our person in Human Resources. This will allow her to create guest passes for our BYOD users. Let's click Create New. I'll enter a username, Hannah, their full name, Hannah C, and a password. The only role defined is the default role, so that is what we will use. Click OK. Now, Hannah in Human Resources can create guest passes for our BYOD users. The next thing we need to look at is how Hannah can create a guest pass. Let's look at the guest access page. You can see the guest pass generation URL that Hannah will use to create a guest pass. Let's copy that URL into a new tab in our web browser. We'll put in Hannah's credentials, and now she can create a guest pass for our BYOD user. Let's create one to see how it works. Under full name, let's type Ethan R. We'll leave everything else on the default. Click Next. Now Hannah can give this information to our BYOD user so he can access the BYOD wireless network. Finally, let's look at how we can see who our BYOD users are and learn how to delete them off the wireless LAN if we need to. Let's go to the Monitor tab on the top of the page. Notice that Generated Guest Passes here on the left is automatically selected. On this page, you can see the guest passes who created them. We are going to assume that this guest pass was created by mistake, so we are going to select it, then click Delete All. That's it for this demonstration. In this demo, we looked at creating a guest wireless network for BYOD. We did this by defining a guest access service and associating that guest access service with a guest wireless LAN. We then created a user to generate guest passes for our BYOD users. Finally, we looked at how we can delete a guest pass if needed.